Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Jacob Silverblade, and today we've got a video on the August Red meta report, how and why that has influenced the decision of Everguild to make this balance update, just came in today, and why afterwards, and I'll talk about why I don't think their system on balancing the game is actually a very good system, or not the system I think they have actually in terms of balancing the game, because it all makes sense now when you look for it through a certain lens. And if you do that, then you can see why they've come up with all the decisions they do, and how really personally I think there's a better system to actually do what they're trying to do, which would be so much more simple and, well, just better overall. So let's get into it. The synopsis of the meta report is that Orks done really badly here. Orks have done really badly here. Ultramarines have did a bit of standout one here, and the Aeldari are second best. And then Ultramarines are standout here, with Aeldari standing out here as well. In terms of the best warlords, you've got Jain Zar and then Titus in terms of overall. And then when it comes to the Legendary Division, you've got Jain Zar, then it's Primus Saphira, but right after that is Titus. The basic synopsis of this is that Ultramarines are doing really well, as well as the Craftworld Eldar, particularly with Jain Zar, and particularly with Captain Titus. So targeting cards around those two warlords in particular, I would think, to bring that warlord down, bring those two warlords down to make it more playable with everybody else. I'm presuming that they think everybody else is actually fine, which, you know, if they're going along and say everything above 55% win rate is a problem, then in theory they should nerf all of these warlords. So Swarmlord, Ursula, Creed, and Primus Saphira would also get nerfed. And then presumably the same would stand up to this point. So Jain Zar left and Titus, but also, guess what? Lucius the Eternal, Swarmlord, and then Hector Feynman would also get nerfed. This is Primus Saphira and Ursula, Creed, and then so and so. So you could do something about the Imperial Guard, because both Ursula, Creed, and Hector Feynman. And then Swarmlord could also arguably be nerfed, but that's and then Lucius Eternal as well. But that's if you were going to do things based off that. But it doesn't look like it. It looks like they just target the two main, like, top points and whatever. Fine. Let's go into what the actual changes now, because of course Orks have been the lowest, and actually I completely forgot to say, in terms of the two lowest from both Legendary and so Grukk Face-Rippa, and you also got Boss Sagstruck, Gordrang, and Mozrog. And then guess what? You would think that Grukk Face-Rippa, but then Beast Boss Morgrin and Mozrog and Sagstruck also all being really low down as well. You would think they would do something about that. They've definitely done something about Grukk. However, we'll not get into it, but I think what I will say is that I think sometimes data such these can be misleading, and it just solely relying on the data can lead to problems. Because at the end of the day, this game is not it is not an exact science, this game. Nothing truly is. So we're going to talk about some of the changes here. Toxic Bonfire. So if we go into the card game itself, there's something I will note with Toxic Bonfire, is that it is a level 40 forge. And I've only got level 40 forge with myself with one faction, and as the Ultramarines. So yeah, the fact that Orks are level 40 forge is quite a big problem for Toxic Bonfire. So if you want to get it. That being said, this defense card is really bloody good. Being able to stun a troop and then deal 2 damage for it is like kind of the best defense card for, technically for zero energy. Best defense card there is in the game. Okay, maybe not game, but certainly Orks. Very, very good for Orks. One of the best in my opinion. So yeah, that's really bloody good. Pyromaniacs. It gives one more blast, gives blast 3, very good for go wide sort of stuff. Also good thing with sort of slay effects, so it's actually quite decent with as a combination with Gordrang, because that's blast free, and it can help with all the healing and the slay, but overall nothing too amazing. Actually, hold on, I'll skip through all the cards into the stuff that I think is decent. Pyromaniacs I think is a decent change. Toxic Bonfire I also think is a decent change, so those are 2 cards. Other changes I think is decent is Death Gun Looter. Death Gun Looter is when an enemy troop dies, or it used to be when any troop dies, sorry, it gets +1 range attack. So that could make him like quite a big scary shooter guy, and then you could be able to shoot the face and deal some damage. If you're able to do that. The problem is that it's got very low melee attack for 4 energy cost, and then you're just able to just melee it to death and whatever, and then the Death Gun Looter is as if it was just a free fight and did nothing. Now the troop effect is kind of amazing and actually ridiculously overpowered. The closest equivalent is the Necron's card, Locust Lord Destroyer. This guy deals only 1 damage, and he does see play in Necron decks. So the fact that this guy does 2 damage instead, he has 1 less. This guy's got 1 less range attack, but he has more life, which means he's more likely able to stay alive, which means that he's more likely able to utilize things. He doesn't have reanimation, but he doesn't have destroyer, so he's just not locked into not able to attack face. Overall, this guy's an amazing guy. They both have support for it, you know. Necrons have scarabs, Orks have grots and stuff, so they both got support for triggering this guy over and over again. The fact that there's 2 though is just kind of crazy. Green Horde, still bad. Unbridled Carnage. Unbridled Carnage was always a good card, still remained to be a good card, and for some reason why has got a buff. Apparently we didn't see enough of this card. Don't know how you feel about this guys, but you know, it's going to do a minimum of 4 damage, and every single troop you're gonna do 2 more damage. This can do a lot of damage, particularly the face. Yes, it's random, so there can be things the opponent can do about it. Get some armored units, get armored vanguard troops in the way, hits those things, it only counts as 1 damage. But otherwise, this is like really scary and can do a lot, particularly with the new, well, not new warlord, but a particular warlord which can really spam things down. Yeah, that could be a problem. Crumpled Claw, nice change, but not really that amazing. This is a sort of in-between one. I will talk about him, but he's like, you know, if we count Toxic Bonfire, Pyromaniacs, you know, Death Gun Looter, that's 3 changes. Unbridled Carnage, that's 4 changes. This is like 4.5 changes, which are good. He's yet to be tested, but he's certainly interesting. I thought it was a bit interesting before, and now I think he's really interesting. Whether he will replace something, I do not know. Anyway, where is he? Ah, that's because I don't have the card. Now, where is he now? Weird boy. There we go. His ability is basically to cost 2, now it costs 1. Deals 1 damage to all friendly units, so it can be himself. It will be himself, but it gives them +2 attack. This applies to your warlord, it applies to all your grots, it applies to just everything. It is a brilliant sort of like late game finisher card, just able to get that final hit in. And this guy at the end of the day with 6 life and a shield is actually a real pain in the ass to remove. Think about how difficult it is to take out Ezekiel with that shield and 6 life. The only difference is this guy, in fairness, does have camouflage, so you can't target with stratagems. So, for example, if you are playing the Orks yourself, you could use the attack squig to stun it and get the shield back. But if you were just planning on stunning him and like living that solution, well, the Y energy is really bloody good. It can really buff up everyone else. It gives that extra melee attack to them as well. So you will find there to be problems with Y energy. It can create problems, and don't forget, it gives it to the warlord. It's all friendly units, so the warlord's gonna get 4 attack now or whatever. So with, you know, a proper killy combo afterwards as well, that is a serious buff to actually damage output if you get a proper killy with that. So yeah, I would say just don't underestimate this guy and what he can do. I think he could be just legit. Big shooter boy, ah yes. So that's 4.5, 5.5 kind of good cards is shooter boy. Shooter Boy was always good in a good go wide sort of orc deck beforehand, and he's even more important now. That mop ability to do 1 to 2 damage to random enemy, just that 2 damage potential means that you increase your damage by 50% because it's 1 to 2. It's so scary. It can do a lot. And it will just put the pain on just doing that what extra damage with all the grots and everything. It's legit. It's scary. Very scary. And that's the big shooter. Not big shooter, but a shooter boy. Bane boy kicks law. We'll talk about him in a moment, but we're talking about all the go wide stuff. And then we got Grukk Face-Rippa himself. Yeah, Grukk Face-Rippa. This guy, the first TIE troop costs 1 less. So the first initial thing was just that you could just get spam multiple of these guys. I was worried that you can put 3 Storm Boys in a single turn on E3 because that was way too much if possible. Thankfully, you can't just do that. You only get 2 Storm Boys at maximum because it's always the first Orc troop with Tide, not like the extra Tide unit counting towards it. But it does mean that on turn 1 you can get for triple grots, and if they're going for the other counter attack card, Gretchen Tower, that means they can get 5 grots turn 1, which is actually really scary. They can also go for things like, you know, like Makari's free, and then you can just get hero power. Well, no, Makari can't be free because it doesn't have Tide. But there's also like, so you can spam the board like that. You can also get things like Death Copters just earlier on, so you can just get them for like just cheaper, like as a 3 NG drop. You get these stats as a 3 NG drop. You also have got the potential of these guys just having a flank troop at 4 energy drop, or if you need the Squig Hog Boys instead, they get him down as a 4 energy drop, as these scary flank troops which can do big sort of damage. So, and if in doubt, you can always get a killer cannon instead. So there's a lot of things here which you can just get out earlier. And there's a lot of like just Tide units you can just play and just get out more stuff every single turn. The continuous Orc War, and then also he has the ability to draw troops, so you're not going to run out of resources with his 2 energy talent and ability as well. Overall, it is a really dangerous change, and I think it's actually gone too far. I really do. I'm not saying, I will say this, we'll go to the win rates. I do think Orcs are better than this win rate, and certainly better than this win rate. Do I think they needed some kind of buff? Yes, certain things could certainly get some buffs. Do I think Orcs are bad though before, or like terrible? Maybe bad, but definitely not terrible. They certainly didn't need Grukk having this ability, making things just chucked out for free, I can tell you that much. Overall, these changes, there's some things here, you know, which are not so relevant, like Rock Invasion, not so relevant. It is a buff overall. There's like certain things we can get down, like particularly War Bikers and stuff, but I'm not like, oh dear gosh, like that being an ultimate win con for like Gaz control or something. Like, I don't think that still doesn't make it into Gaz control. Big drop on Knob, it's just like 4 to 5 range attack. It's still what it kind of was before, which is a concussive beat stick. Pretty darn scary, but like not the end of the world. The war lasting to the opponent's turn doesn't change anything. Green Horde making it, the Green Horde one is funny. Like, the reason why it's funny is because it's probably alright now. It's like a slightly subpar, but if they make it 2 NG cost, it'll be too much. Because if you get 2 Green Hordes, it means that on turn 4 you can get you can just spam the board with all the Orks and stuff, and that won't be good. But as a 6 NG play to spam the board, well, now we're talking about Ravenous Hunger. Now we're talking about Storm Raven and Titus's ability. You know, now we're talking about Imatech with the 5 NG board here for Necrons. You know, we're talking about certain things here that you really wasn't talking about before to properly deal with the board at that point. So, hence, you know, like, the reason why it's extra funny is because this card has gone through so many changes. I think this is the most changed Orc card that they have, because it went from 3 to be very early games. This used to be 3 energy, your troops cost 2 less. Then they made it 4, and then they made it 5, then they made it 4 again, but then they made it so it only costs 1 less, and now they've made it free again. So it's kind of funny. Crump and Claw, as I said, 4 to 6. Nah. I'm not like... I'm not like, ah, yes, this guy, but he should have always basically been a 6 range attack, to be honest. That's like just perfectly fine to me. Having 4 range attack was always just very, very bad for what he was trying to do. And now he's just like kind of a reasonable card. It doesn't have a weakness a terrible weakness per se. Big shooter boy, where is it? He's here. Dealing 1 more damage from, you know, for 1 more additional target. Doesn't change what he does. He is actually alright in a go wide deck, but there's better things you can put in, to be honest. And Rocket Boy is actually got average stats now. So he's just an average guy. He's Rocket Boy, 3, 5, 5 life. That is average stats, I would say, for 4. Well, slightly above average stats. Average stats, in my opinion, for 4 energy drop is a 3/4 with 5 life. That's what I think is an average stats. So if you look at, you know, this being a 4 energy drop, he's got slightly above average stats, and he's got his abilities Blast 3 and Unstable. Which Unstable is like a very meh trait. Blast 3 is very situational. You got able to attack with it. Nothing else going for it. There's no good traits here. There's no really good ability going on here. So he ends up being a bad unit. There's not really much else to say. Overall, I think Grukk could actually be a serious problem. I've played a couple of games against Grukk, and I suspect this season you will just need to be a counter Grukk deck. I think you're just gonna have to like just have your deck tailored towards countering Grukk. So if you're playing Ultramarines, you need to be playing Titus. If you're playing Chaos, you either need to be bringing every single Traitor's Hate or every single Spawnedom, all that stuff, or you know, you just play Hark and Worldclaimer. If you're gonna be playing Eldar, get every single flank troop you can get in the game. Make sure you have 2 Eldritch Storms in the opening hand, that sort of thing. You know, you gotta be countering go wide Grukk. I think he is too strong. I think he is S tier. Most powerful deck in the game? Potentially. I think just that ability to get things down for basically free could just be too much. Is he broken? I don't think it's too early to say broken, but potential S tier right here. As I say, I don't think Orks were truly as bad as people was playing them. I think just the best people weren't playing the best decks. But, you know, they got buffed anyway. Adeptus Sororitas, this is just a nice change for more than Val. This isn't much within the points, but they decided to add this as an additional change. I think this is perfectly fine, and it's a nice. This is actually a really nice change that they've done here. More than Val's Righteous Repugnance. Their faith ability means that she heals 1. It just keeps her more in line with something like Erica. I don't think she's still better than Erica, but she's still a decent warlord. You know, nothing to be sniffed at the end of the day. And now that ability just to keep her alive can just sometimes be the difference between winning and losing, maybe. And if you're able to get it off, then fair enough. Ultramarines. Now, I've done a video which is about 1 hour and 7 minutes long, and I realized I made a huge rant about the Ultramarines, and then also the Eldar. In all fairness, there is some problems with these things. I want to just be brief as possible. There is some good changes as well, and there is like good and also necessary changes, if I have to be honest. But overall, I think there are definitely some misses from Everguild here. And I want to talk about it a moment afterwards with my reasoning why Everguild did what they think they did, and how they've come to that conclusion, and why it is basically wrong, and how they actually balance this game overall, and how they should actually take a different approach which should avoid these sort of scenarios. So Assault Doctrine, change description to +3 attack, Codex, gain 1 armor and heal 2. Used to be +4 attack and heal 3 instead on the Codex. Overall, this is a good change. Assault Doctrine, I have said this before, Assault Doctrine is too strong. I don't think the Codex heal 2 part, so hence Codex heal 3, I don't think the Codex Heal 3 part needed to change, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you're missing out on one less life. It can mean something. I would have liked actually Codex the healing part to be more relevant, to make it more of a control card. But overall, +3 attack instead of +4 attack is the main thing. It used to give +4 attack, now it's far too much, and trust me, I've tested it playing. I did play a lot of Titus today. I actually haven't gone along and faced a Grukk deck with Titus, but I will say that the Assault Doctrine is still very good in a Titus deck. It is still a very powerful card, and there's nothing. It's still good. I don't think it needs any more nerfs, but I think it's appropriate for where it is. Now, moving on, we are going to talk about the Inceptor Sergeant, because I think they've gone too far with the Inceptor Sergeant changes, and it doesn't, with him not buffing himself, and I would have rather done something different. Much different. The problem with Inceptor Sergeant is that what we're going to discover here is Angel's Death is going to be a better card now, even though that got received enough, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Inceptor Sergeant did need a change. I recognize that. But one of the main problems is that it had a high range attack, and then it had the 6 range attacks. They could have killed whatever, and if you didn't have a way of removing it with some sort of stratagem or troop or something, you had to shoot over your warlord to kill it, and that meant that, you know, you could take up to 7 damage, because this guy could come down on 7E, but then tactical insight, so you get the double Codex trigger off, so he actually has 7 range attacks. That could be up to 7 damage when trying to shoot this guy. Now, as much as I do believe that shouldn't be the case, I do also think the Inceptor Sergeant here does too little. The Codex ability to give +1 to your troops, it never really was about buffing the other troops with this guy. It never has been either. For context, this guy used to be a Codex with no Codex ability at all. And the main change to that Codex ability, giving +1 range attack to all the troops, meant that he got the +1 range attack, which meant that he became a 6 range attack, which was such a big deal because suddenly it made like massive breakpoints. For example, a Lich Guard, well, if you sent 5 range attack into it, it only does 3 damage and he left with 2 life. If you sent an Inceptor Sergeant with a 6 range attack where he left on 1 life, and then your Warlord can now shoot at this guy, forcing your opponent to have to reanimate it. That is quite a big deal. Another big breakpoint is that if someone just played a Venom Crawler, it meant that the Inceptor Sergeant could go along and shoot it with the 6 range attack, dealing 5 damage, and your Warlord could finish it off, making another big breakpoint. I believe there's some breakpoints here. Another big breakpoint is that you can just use the Inceptor Sergeant just to kill the Crimson Hunter. Yeah, you're going to take 5 damage back, but if in doubt, you can just use the Inceptor Sergeant to kill the Crimson Hunter. You can't do that anymore. There is others. Another one is that if you really have to, you don't really want to be doing all these things, but if you have to, you can use it to kill the Enforcer battlesuit with your Warlord. Point being is that it granted the necessary breakpoints to do the job that you needed it to do, which is actually killing certain things. Now it simply doesn't do that. It doesn't kill certain targets that you needed to kill. And it does mean that something like Lich Guard is going to be actually a serious problem now for Ultramarines, unless you have either hard removal, which is not what you really want to be doing. You don't really want to be hard removing a Lich Guard. The other option is their Primus Eradicator. So ultimately, I don't think this is the change that should have happened, because now he kind of doesn't do the job, and you are going to replace it with Angels of Death cards, even though that got a nerf. What they should have done is made a Codex give +1 to your troops this turn, making it a temporary buff, or only make the Codex ability affect himself, or, to be frankly honest, remove the Codex ability altogether and just make it have 6 range attack, and I would be more than fine with that. It means that in, like, for example, a Vara Tigerius deck, he is then not a piece triggering your Avenging Zeal plays, you'll just use it as a removal piece. And I think that's perfectly fine. That's all he does at the end of the day. It's a removal piece. He doesn't really buff the board because he's kind of too late to be going for go wide buffs. Like, yeah, on occasion you could be buffing a Pistol Librarian to give it an extra range attack. It's nice, but is it really gonna change it? No. You're still gonna be melee attacking 9 times out of 10 with the Pistol Librarian. So it's not really gonna be the biggest deal in the world. If you, for example, you Pistol Librarian on 70 and then the next turn you go Inceptor Sergeant and use hero power. You know, whatever. Like, I'm not bothered that this Inceptor Sergeant, this Pistol Librarian now has 6 range attack. It's too late for like a go wide buff piece. Really, you need to be using a Primaris Chaplain for that. You know, simply put it doesn't work. But that's my rant over about Inceptor Sergeant, how it didn't really need it, particularly when compared to other flankers. I mean, like, we got the Sororitas, where you got the Zephyrim and stuff, you got Ork. We've got, hold on, we've got Veteran Stormboy, which has 7 melee attack, which can give flank to your Stormboys. Something doesn't seem right there. And then you have like things like, yes, this has less attack, but it gives a sabotage to opponent's hand, so they have to waste 2 energy. So they're, even if it's their 7E now, they have to spend 2 energy wasting the sabotage. So they only should get 5 energy of flank value to counteract this. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on here that ultimately really make the Inceptor Sergeant just literally, if it's just gonna be a flank tool, which is, as I say, it is, that's all it does. It kind of needs to be better at that job. So otherwise it struggles to be worthwhile. Anyway, Angels of Death. Donor buffs melee. This didn't need a nerf. I mean, like, they still, thankfully, still kept some sort of Codex ability around to give him +1 attack to your range attack to your Primaris and Scepters. It wasn't too strong as a thingy, and I don't think this actually needed a nerf in the end. I can somewhat see it, but I think it's fine. It +1 range attack to your intercessors, you know, like, it has serious weaknesses. Yeah, it has serious strengths. For example, some of its strengths is that you can take on like Pistol Librarian and able to take that all the way down. There's other things with just 9 life. If you have 9 life and no armor, you can very easily die to this. Granted, if you have 2 armor, suddenly you just don't die to this. This at best only does 3 damage to a guy with 2 armor. So the Lich Guard example we showed earlier, this doesn't do the job. It doesn't cut it at the end of the day. It's not good enough. So you have to provide something different for the job at hand. Angels of Death. Yes, it is the next best card. In terms of Scepter Sergeant, yes, it can take out certain targets, but I don't think it's really that strong. It has some severe weaknesses, pretty much anything with armor, and the second weakness is that every single guy you use to flank, well, that is a dead guy. So I don't think it really needed that melee damage reduction at the end of the day. So I think just the opponent's Warlord just taking out the Primaris and Scepters, for example, just was good enough, and then it's not that much of a damage return. For example, if Warlord has to attack the intercessors and take 3 damage for it, like, it could have just still kept the +1 melee, and then I think it would have been perfectly fine. Anyway, moving on. We're going to talk about the Eldar, and if I had to be honest, if anything was more egregious, like, we're talking about Inceptor, Angels of Death. Inceptor did need a change, but I don't agree with the change they made, and Angels of Death I don't think needed a change at all. If there was anything here, my golly, Jain Zar's ability talent did not need a change, certainly didn't need to be changed to this, and Howling Banshee didn't need a nerf either. Now, I will grant them, and I will say Jain Zar was at the top, and I had to say Jain Zar is also at the top. Is this the thing I would be targeting? No, not at all. I would ultimately say that really what you need is, if anything, Eldar was putting down too many stealth units, and you need some actual proper anti-stealth to this game to be able to counter those stealth units. You know, you got the Striking Scorpions, you got the Warp Spiders, But then you also have got the 1 energy guys. Oh, do I not have them? I do not have them. How strange. The Death Spinners, Warp Spider, you've got those guys coming down, you've got Warp Spider Exarch coming down, you know. There's a lot of stealth units all coming down, all being stealthy, all not being able to be interacted with and causing problems. There's certainly a change which I think which was needed here, and that is more anti-stealth for the game would have been my solution, to be frankly honest. However, they decided to go for the other solution, which means that now, instead of playing Jain Zar to go aggro, you play Lycus. Or you play Iliax Zephyr. Pick your poison, people. It just happened to be that Jain Zar's poison was slightly better, I guess, than the other poisons, which I don't entirely agree with, to be frankly honest. I think Lycus could be better. But people have thought that Jain Zar's is a slightly better poison, and so hence they went with Jain Zar, and then the best players went with Jain Zar, and so hence they decided to nerf Jain Zar massively. So let's go into the actual nerf here. It's not to do with the passive to passive restore remains, it's to do with wall ability. She no longer gets a choice between extra melee attack or the stun. He now gets just gain +2 melee attack this turn, and you have to spend a stone. So if you have stones, you have to spend it even if you don't want to activate it. And it doesn't even stun the enemy warlord, it stuns a random enemy troop. So now Jain Zar has been severely nerfed here, to be frankly honest. One of the main downsides is not being able to generate stones. Now that you have to spend this stone ability on her, and you don't get a choice between so-and-so and so-and-so, it is actually huge, and, well, just rip Jain Zar. Seriously, rip. That constant ability to constantly able to stun, excuse me, but not only that, but also able to stun the enemy warlord, was extremely powerful in my opinion, and made her very much worthwhile. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this change was not needed. The fact that it doesn't stun the warlord is a real downside, and yeah, I think she is now the worst warlord out of Iliax Zephyr and Lycus. I'm just not seeing it. Out of the three, I'm just not seeing it. I think she's quite comfortably the worst out of the three. Let's go to Aurea Larathargus. However you say his name. Orion. Call him Orion. This guy. Now, I think this guy is a fair change. They did a simple change. They didn't like completely rework the ability into being absolutely useless, for example. They just merely decreased his range attack from 4 to 5. I think this is a fair change. This guy used to be 5 range attack, had the stealth ability. With the shuriken, basically came out, since because anti-stealth, as I say, doesn't exist in this game, he did just come out with 6 range attack, effectively. And that will allow you to, you know, absolutely trade into anything that you needed, or you just could do 6 damage to face. It was a very powerful effect, don't get me wrong, and I think just toning that down a bit so it only has 4 range attack, I think just puts him in a nice spot where he's nothing too broken, but he's not like nothing too weak either. I think it puts him in an appropriate spot, an appropriate energy sort of like damage point where I think he's perfectly fine now, and I really like this change that they've done here. Howling Banshee, on the other hand, is a change that I don't agree with. Lower melee attack from 4 to 3. Don't get me wrong, Howling Banshee was a good card. I do not think this guy is a good card anymore. Guy, girl, that's a girl, there's boobs on there, isn't there? No longer good. If it was to nerf this, which I could say there could be a slight nerf, I would have done one or two things. I would either decrease the range attack or decrease the health, and I think I would have decreased the range attack, because then it has a unique weakness in the fact that you can't actually kill a 4 health unit, which some 4 drops are. Can't kill a 4 health unit which is flying, and that is quite a unique problem for Howling Banshee. It means that you have to have something else stable to deal with that problem instead. Can't kill a 4 health flying unit with your warlord. That's it. you have to send something else into it instead. So you have either have a nude Fireheart, or you have to be saying something like Shroud Runner, or you have to be saying, you know, a Death Spinner Warp Spider maybe, or maybe a Wind Rider. I do not think this Howling Banshee needed this nerf. I think it was at that good sweet spot before. If anything, -1 range attack. The -1 melee attack is far too much. It means that it can't actually do its job into actually being a flank piece. It's really only a rally to stun an enemy piece, which, don't get me wrong, it's like the main reason why you play this card now. It is not for the flank potential, it's not for the stats, it is just for the stun. The flank potential was actually decent when it had the melee attack, and I think it's too weak now. So yeah, that's overall the changes. This final change here is just actually just a bug fix, really. It just didn't work before, now it does. So overall, just quick synopsis on the update. I think there's appropriate changes, buffs to Orks, and there's some nice things here. I actually forgot to say that there's a really nice thing with Pain Boy with the Orks. Forgot to say this. It helps with a sort of control Gaz deck / or maybe a Gym Boss deck. Just the ability to feel free to a friendly unit. The fact that this guy kind of wasn't being played before was kind of weird. He was a very good unit before. Now he has the rally ability to heal free to a friendly unit. Makes him a very good unit sort of now, and it's a particularly good thing for an Orc control deck. I'm definitely going to be using 2 of them in my Orc control deck. Heck, we'll get the second one now because I went on my way to get that card. Oh, no. We'll get it now. I went on my way to get the so-and-so card so I can get another Pain Boy's Snickflaw, and I'm going to be putting it in an Orc control Gaz deck, which is going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. But overall, I think I would have liked to see not just one archetype being buffed here. This is mostly trying to buff basically only one archetype, which is the go wide Grukk archetype. And to be frankly honest, I don't think that was smart. If you were done to buff Orks in general, it wasn't just Grukk Face-Rippa which was doing badly. Yes, he was the lowest on the sort of stats and win rates. So we go down to here, Grukk Face-Rippa 37.5, and you go into legendary, really bad here with the 28.9. I'll grant people that he was doing the worst, so he probably was the worst Orc Warlord. However, I do not think he's first off that bad of a Warlord. I think there's other things he could have done. I suspect most likely the best players just simply didn't play with this, this Orc Warlord, and hence the players who did play with him were bad and probably using bad decks, if I had to be frankly honest. I think the best decks and absolutely abuse this tide effect, and it's going to cause some serious problems with that constant draw as well. There was nothing really terrible about this Warlord. It just needed, the faction needed to be buffed more, and the fact that he has that ability now kind of is going to cause some problems. So I really wish they focused on buffing other things alongside of it. Maybe some more control cards, maybe some bit more Gym Boss cards for Warboss, Gordrang and Mozrog. Maybe even making Mozrog a unique sort of strategy so he doesn't do the same things that like Boss Sagstruck and Warboss Gordrang does. You know, like something like that. There was other cards they could have focused on here and changed to make things better. But alas, they've decided not to do this, and they've decided to go for a different strategy instead, which is just buff all the go wide cards. So ultimately, even though I do like one of these changes here, there's some other things which are questionable, some things which I've gone too far on, and then other things which the fact that they're leaving some things behind is a real shame. Sororitas change, as I said, it was a good change. And then overall, yes, some necessary changes to, I'd say, to the Eldar, and yes, to the Ultramarines. The amount of stealth troops you can put down, the amount of stuff you can, that sort of thing you can put down with Eldar can be a problem. And then the Ultramarines, yes, I do agree with the Assault Doctrine change, but they didn't change the Inceptor Sergeant as they should have. It now it's in a really weird place where it's not a good place. And Angels of Death didn't need a nerf either. I mean, like, they could have just done these two changes. And also, they didn't deal with the most powerful deck in the game. I'm confident in saying this. The most powerful deck in the game was absolutely Vara Tigurius, with the Sergeant Talion being the main thing they could have nerfed here, and they should have done something about Sergeant Talion. And the fact that they go things purely by win rate, and the fact that Vara Tigurius does not have the high win rate as Titus. We go to here, Vara Tigurius is only at 54% win rate, where Titus is at the 57% win rate. And then same thing with Legendary Division, he's a bit higher up here, but 54.8% rate compared to Titus's 56.7%. Hence, they decided not to nerf those cards around Vara Tigurius, when actually, in all honesty, Vara Tigurius is the more powerful warlord in this scenario. And the fact that it's honestly, it's either people are playing, there's two types of Vara Tigurius decks I'm seeing out there. There's the one which is being played by Aqua and things, where you have a lot of stratagems in deck, you know, 2 assault doctrines, you've got some hard removal and stuff. That is not the ultimately most powerful deck. Where you want to be the most powerful deck is just Avenging Zeal. It's boring, but it is just Avenging Zeal with double tactical insight. That is the most powerful Vara Tigurius deck. I can promise you that. The fact that that deck hasn't been nerfed and dealt with in some way, particularly with Sergeant Talion, because if you have the Sergeant Talion with tactical insight combo, you can just destroy your opponent with the Avenging Zeal combo, and it can lead to too many scenarios. It is way too strong, and it's not alright. Hence, Vara Tigurius is... something needs to be done about it. Something needs to be done about it. Whoops. Yeah. Like, they didn't deal with the most powerful stuff. So, this is the problem with balancing things on win rate, is that certain things don't get dealt with, which actually do need to be dealt with. Because someday, trust me, that Vara Tigurius, once people realize how to actually play Vara Tigurius, that Vara Tigurius deck is going to get a 70% win rate. And it's gonna get in, like here, it's also gonna get a 70% win rate. It's gonna be too strong. And this is the problem with balancing around percentage win rate. So this is my final point that I want to talk about. Balancing the game around like these percentages based on percentages only does lead to problems. And this is what I honestly think Everguild, the company which makes Warpforge, this is how they balance the game. Ultimately, in the day, you can't do this for something like Warpforge. And the reason why is it's just that the player rate just isn't there. You only have about 300 concurrent players, I think. I found a start graph on Steam showing the amount of people playing on Steam regularly. We only have about 300 players at most every single day. Now those are Steam numbers, so there is probably quite a bit of people playing on phone. We could probably add, maybe with generous being 100, 150 more players, you know, which is quite substantial. Let's not disregard that. So there's probably about 400 current players at any one time. But I will say that isn't like loads of players. That's not enough data points. And particularly with the last season and how they've made their changes to the ladder system meant that people just aren't playing as seriously anymore. They're really not. I certainly can tell you that I didn't take it nearly as seriously as I could have, because I knew that at the end of the day, if I wanted to just play this season as seriously as possible, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. I would play with one warlord only, get as many points as I can, leave it until like the 3rd day of the season. So that's in a certain amount of time. It doesn't even say anymore. Does it really not say until when the season's going to... Oh, 27 days. Okay. So I'd leave this with only 3 days left, and then I'll get as many of the bonus points extra. So I'll be at like a 4,000 something, and then I'll try and get the 2,000 points whatever extra with all of this lot. And that is would be my entire strategy. I knew this day one that would be the best strategy. I didn't take it seriously because I didn't want to do that. That's just not fun, just using one warlord the entire time, the entire season until we got 3 days left. No, So hence I'm just doing, you know, whatever the heck. Like I'm just doing, oh, a bit of Ultramarines, bit of Eldar, you know, a bit of Imperial Guard, right? Bit of Dark Angels. Let's get those bonus points going, whatever. There was just no incentive. And so hence many people aren't taking this seriously. So this is even less of an incentive to take Legendary Division win rates seriously and reliably. And when you have a lack of data points, and a lack of data points which are even relevant, but then suddenly things like this going based on percentage win rate data is not a good idea when it comes to figuring out what to buff and what to nerf. The best way to do it is actually ultimately understand your game, understand how your game works, figure out how to play it yourself, see what to do, see what changes need to be made, and understand how the game works and how to play around it. And then once you figure that out, then implement changes. The citizens they are doing right now, I think it's quite clear that, like, you know, there could have been a better job done with these Orks changes. There could have been a rough, instead of just focusing on one archetype, there could have been a rough, more all-around Ork buff here, because the Orks aren't doing that well in general, to be frankly honest. You can look at the win rates. The win rate said are not doing that in general. So they could have used a buff in general. I mean, we can just see this ourselves, and I can see this from just myself playing the game and understanding how Orks work. Instead of just basically only the go wide archetype getting buffed. Everything here is to do with go wide, apart from like Toxic Bonfire. But Pyromaniacs go wide, Rock Invasion literally go wide. Big Chopper Knob to do with mob ability, that's go wide. Power of War, mob, go wide. Death Gun Looter, go wide. Green Horde, go wide. Unbridled Carnage, go wide. Crumbling Claw, here's a mob ability, go wide. War Energy, go wide. It affects everybody. Shooter Boy, go wide, because mob Pain Boy Killslaw is the only guy which is not go wide. Grukk Face-Rippa is ability changed to be go wide. This is a mob ability in Rocket Boy, I guess. Okay, fine, you can get that. I don't know why that Orc guy is just average stats now, so that guy also got a buff. He doesn't fit into any target type because he's just a bad card. Rocket Boy, but whatever. Maybe he was buffed so that the Rock Invasion doesn't look as bad if you end up getting a Rocket Boy, right? Whatever. Still, majority of the stuff here is go wide. It's not buffing up other strategies. And you could see that from just playing the game, man. You could really, like, maybe Beast Boss Morgan is perfectly alright, but maybe some beast cards could use a slight helping hand here and there. Boss Zagstruck, you know, is doing really poorly. Grukk Face-Rippa actually I think is better, but whatever. You know, I'm not saying don't buff go wide Orcs, but that was kind of one of the best archetypes as it was already with Gazgor Fracker. Support other archetypes. Look at Gordrank and what his ability is doing. Look at Beast Boss Morgrim and look what his ability is doing. Consider what cards need to be buffed to support those archetypes. And then understand what exactly these cards need to be doing and what these cards are meant to be doing and why people are only using Jain Zar. You know, this change to Jain Zar, absolutely terrible. It just makes it Jain Zar is now unplayable. Anyway, I think I've ranted on for long enough. E.g., if you need some help balancing this game, reach out to me on Discord or something. I'm more than happy to help and give my thoughts and actual opinions, and we can suddenly have a sit down and chat and whatever, and I can give you my honest feedback and what slight details need to be changed here, because even within your data, I can tell you right now that, for example, Dark Angels could use a buff because they're only at 47.55 win rate. Deptus Rotus, even though I have 50% win rate here, that's no rule in his 47.27 win rate. You know, there's some things which do need to be changed. Deptus Rotus as a faction can be somewhat changed with their faith mechanic and how they work. And Dark Angels, I understand why the late game, because in Legendary Division they don't do as well, because heck, some cards which were absolutely crucial beforehand, like the Deathwing Knights and the Deathwing Champion, are nowhere near as good now, because you've nerfed them unnecessarily. I'm not saying the Deathwing Knight Master needed nerfs. He did need nerfs from the past, when he had a shield, when he gave +3 attack to all units, including himself. That was too strong. However, now with these changes, with these changes, Those were not needed. And I've realized now you do things solely on percentage based win rate, which is just not a smart idea. It never leads to a good game. So please, change your system and how you actually balance things, because right now what you're doing and how you're doing it is just not good and doesn't work. You need to change your system, and I'm more than happy to help. Anyway, see you all guys.